Welcome to Finding Home Healing. I'm your host, Sadie. I believe you were born with a light that guides you to your higher self and most passionate life. But for many of us, it's been extinguished or lost. My mission is to help you find your way back home to that light so that you can love deeper, live in your power, and truly thrive. For those lost or lonely souls, welcome home. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Finding Home Healing. Today, me and my friend Caitlin, my new friend and old friend, if you know what I mean, like soul family old friend, get together and debrief a podcast episode on the Danny Jone's podcast where he interviews Dr. Alexis Cowan. She's a PhD researcher in the most prestigious light lab in the whole world, and she goes through the entire biology, biochemistry, and physiology of the sunlight and why we need to be so careful about the light that we expose ourselves to and the light that we have not been exposing ourselves to. There's very strong evidence and proof that as humans, all that we really need for our greatest health is water, light, and magnetism. So Caitlin and I were really fascinated by this episode that we listened to, so much so that we wanted to debrief the conversation together. And I thought that it was so important that I wanted to share it with my community here as well. It's chock full of so many very simple steps and very actionable things that you can do to support your health, to bring you back to a state of balance naturally. We can get rid of chronic fatigue, we can get rid of chronic illness, we can get rid of obesity. Like all of these things that our bodies are experiencing are really a result of us not going back to basics. So we're going to debrief that entire conversation, kind of add our own little flair and spread this message because I think it's really, really crucial for our health and well-being. I hope you enjoy. Let's dive in.
Whole checklist.
Oh, dude, I've really screwed it up a lot.
You sound like us when we're getting in the helicopter, like
and check the rotor,
caution
check
warning
the
lights,
gas,
caution warning lights, instrument gauges, engine, fuel.
Oh yeah, that sounds legit. Do you do that as the person that's checking everything?
Yeah, we get started up, and so as the pilot is going through their checklist, we do that whole checklist. Check that we have all of our medical supplies, that we're not, gonna show up somewhere without what we need.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. Okay. So you're a flight nurse, amongst many other things.
Yeah.
We have, for those of you who kind of know me, don't know Caitlin, we became friends in November. It was very recent, right?
Sometime. Well, when did your sister have her baby?
When
did she do her? When was her blessing wedding?
I think
October.
it was October.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. So we have a very new friendship that has blossomed. It has been fabulous. I love it. We're very similar. And I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. From A to Z, we're going to talk about we rabbit hole a lot. So we'll probably go into mental health stuff. We really jammed and vibed on the Body Keeps the Score book, which I'm still working my way through.
We'll come back to that another time.
Okay, come back to that. But that's like what we really connected on, right? I really wanted to have a conversation about the new things that we've been learning for our physical health, having to do with the sun and light, which is why we have our blue light blocking glasses on, which has been a thing for a long time. But
I've used it for a while when I was working just in the hospitals, because I was like, my eyes are just bothering me, and I'd use it, and I was like, I feel like it's better. And then I learned more about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more benefit to it. I need to be wearing it more.
Yeah, well, there's so much science that I had no idea existed. Like, I've known about blue light blocking things. I've had my phone on that little setting, the night shift, where it turns more orange every night. Yeah. And, like, my computer, I've had that, like, F.Lux program or whatever. So I've always had my screens turn orange because I knew it was a thing, but I didn't dive deep into it until recently. And that podcast that you sent me changed everything. And now, I'm crazy about it. But I can imagine in a hospital, there's all the LEDs everywhere. Yeah. So it's like you're just being doused in it.
Yeah, and all you do is sit on there and chart. We chart probably more than we actually have patient contact. Oh and everything in our world these days is on screens. Like, you can't even go order a burger now without being on a kiosk.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so true. When we were in Hawaii just a couple weeks ago, we were ordering poke on a computer screen. Yeah. Like, we weren't even talking to the lady. Yeah. She was just back there, and we just did our little order on the computer, and then she's like, here you go.
Yeah.
What? That's insane.
Everything's screens and everything's blue light and yeah. So.
Okay, so we need to break down why that's a big deal, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening that maybe are like us, where they've kind of heard about it, it's been in their sphere, they maybe know to do some things, but maybe don't know the extent that we know. So we're not going to break down the science of it, because that's not our field. But we did listen to a podcast from Dr. Alexis Cowan. And
she works under Jack Kruse, and they do a lot of science and research on mitochondria and UV light. And so I think he's more focused on UV light, and he's a neurologist, neurosurgeon. And she's more focused on mitochondria health. And, you know, it's very simple stuff. It's such simple stuff that we can be doing, starting to change our routines on a day-to-day basis. As someone who's struggled with their own anxiety or depression or just general fatigue, which I just feel like is the number one most common reason people go to the doctors nowadays too, and doing just
they don't know what's wrong with them. I know. I'm tired.
And we don't have an answer. And pretty much this entire podcast was just about our lack of UV light exposure and sunlight exposure, and how just getting back to the simple basics of nature is going to be mind-changing. And since starting a lot of this routines in the middle or in the beginning of the winter, I feel like has been super beneficial. Because for us here, it got super foggy and people were like, I don't feel good, it's awful.
The inversion was horrendous. We're in Idaho, and it was so bad.
And that was when I was my most manic phase. Like when I just had like this random like burst of energy was during this, because of I was just more focused on, you know, trying to decrease screen time, trying to, you know, decrease my light exposure at night, and, you know, when we're supposed to, and all sorts of stuff. But it was
something that really struck me in that episode was when she was talking about the artificial environment that we've created for ourselves. Like, yes, granted, we're humans. It doesn't seem like we're supernatural on this planet. We don't have a whole body of fur to keep us warm. We don't have all the adaptations that actual mammals have. So I get it. Like, we need to have some type of shelter. But the artificial environments that we've created for ourselves are so new, relatively speaking. We used to live in, like, I don't know, dirt, you know, like Adobe was made from dirt and clay, I'm pretty sure, right? And we used to live in more like natural homes where our feet got to touch the earth, where you are releasing the positive ions and you're getting negative ones that help you recharge. Like, literally, it's so simple. You go outside, you put your feet on the earth, and you discharge all of your positive ions, and you get negative ones, which gives you more energy. But now we have plastic and like soles in our feet, on our shoes, that prevent us from exchanging with the earth. And it just like, I know it sounds so simple, but it really blew my mind, because it validated me in so many ways, shapes, and forms. Like, when I lived in Hawaii, we were talking about this earlier. When I lived in Hawaii, I was in the sun all the time. My feet were on the ground all the time, and I had leather shoes. I know that sounds really silly, but like rainbows, they're made out of leather. And so, like, she was talking in the podcast how you can get that exchange through natural materials, but when there's, you know, rubber or plastic or whatever, I don't even know if it's plastic, it's probably rubber, like the soles of shoes, I don't know,
just go barefoot.
It's kidding. Like, oh my gosh, this has validated everything in my whole life. And I grew up on a farm, and I was barefoot all the time. Granted, I had a lot of other issues from my childhood, but like, I got the shoe thing right, because I was walking around barefoot all the time. And I just bring that up because it was so validating to me how we do live in this artificial light environment. We live with artificial floors that are made out of vinyl, and we're disconnected from the earth, from the magnetism of the earth, from the vibration of the earth. And even though it doesn't seem like that's a big deal and that could affect our health, it's a significant impact to us. So we were talking about that seasonal depression earlier.
Well, about also with the artificial environment is like, we were told all the time, like, oh, kids are stuck inside during the school, they need to be outside playing and they need to be active. But like, this light makes so much more sense, because yes, these kids are under the LED lights, they aren't getting out in the UV, they aren't getting the sun exposure, they're just getting blue light exposure all the time and whatnot. So with the seasonal depression, it's very important that I think I don't even know how to go down this rabbit hole. Because I'm like, there's so many different ones to go down.
Let's go down them all.
So go down all of them. Because I think what a lot of issues is, a lot of people have heard with seasonal depression is that they're having vitamin D deficiencies. And a lot of it, I think, is actually probably, I think it's also a lot of mitochondrial issues. So the mitochondria is the energy producer in all the cells and stuff. And when we aren't getting the right UV light exposure, those mitochondria aren't functioning properly.
Right.
And then that's where kind of biology comes in, and it's like, okay, well, what do you do in the winter? And it's like, well, in the winter, that's when we get the cold exposure, and that's what's going to help. Anyways, another rabbit hole. I can't keep straight. The issue with vitamin D deficiency in the winter, I think, is very accurate too. But I also think a lot of it is we're also not getting the UV light exposure because they aren't allowing our mitochondria to function properly either. And so that's when we're feeling more tired. We are feeling like, we need to sleep in more too. But actually that's common. Do you remember talking about that too?
Yeah.
It's actually pretty common in during the winter time, is that we are supposed to be like conserving more energy. We aren't supposed to be eating, more proteins and higher fats and stuff like
at
that.
Like higher latitudes, right?
Yeah. Depending on which latitude you're at. Because we will,
because we don't have access to the food that's grown in the ground.
Right. We don't have access to that food, and also based on the deuterium levels. Right.
Yeah. There's so many things. Okay, wait. So let's break down some of the topics, because we're both very squirrel-minded, and that's what I love about us, because we can rabbit hole anything.
But it's not gonna make sense to anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so where we're coming from is that, I guess you can help me create this little thing to help people organize in their mind. Right. Number one thing that we're going to talk about is sun, and why the sun is such a basic, simple thing, but why we need it and why it's so important, and how to get more type of sun exposure if you don't always have sun available to you. In a climate like we live in, where in the winter it's cloudy and there's inversions and it's really difficult, or upper latitudes.
Right.
And everything that has to do with the sun and UV light, and how blue light is in the sunlight, but it's only there for a small time in the middle of the day. We're not meant to be exposed to blue light at all other times, from our screens and our devices and our TVs.
So the blue light is good for us during the day. So there's the UV, we have our UVA and our UVB lights, and the best time to get that exposure is the morning light, because it's mostly just the red and the UVA lights, and that's going to be the red light. That's going to be most beneficial to us. And
did she say the near infrared light?
And I think so. Yeah, and that's the purple light too, I think, also. And so then during the day we do get blue light exposure, because that's supposed to wake us up. That's supposed to that's what's going to activate what's the word? I can't even think.
Dopamine system?
Yeah, something like that. But it activates the melanin receptors in your eyes also too, to create a whole detox system in your body and whatnot too. We need some scientists here.
Yeah, we will not be giving you the science, but there is science behind these things. Listen to the podcast with Alexis. She's on Danny Jone's podcast. She is brilliant and goes through all the science. We're just here to spread the message, because it's so important.
So then in the middle of the day we get the blue light, and then but what combats blue light is the red light. And so when we get that red light exposure, the blue light isn't as overwhelming to our system as much. But then when the sun goes down and we all are exposed to all the blue light, all the screens, all the lights, most of our lights are incandescent lights, or they banned incandescent lights.
Oh my God, I have a story for that.
Because and all we are getting is blue lights. And so they try to take out the red and the purple light, because they were
less efficient.
Not as energy efficient and whatever. So all of our lights are just pure blue lights. And so
insane.
So
Obama
at night,
banned incandescent lights. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I have this story. I went to the Home Depot just a couple months ago looking for a regular light bulb that has the little filament in it, that breaks over time, and there were none I couldn't buy a single regular light bulb like how I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I was furious. I was actually very mad because the LED lights, like in my house, even right now, they give me headaches.
Yeah.
I don't feel good from them. I never turn them on unless I absolutely have to. And I like the yellow or orange light bulbs that are original that I put in my lamps because the LEDs give me headaches. And I was infuriated. And then I found out that Obama banned them because they're energy inefficient. And that they block all the UV light in our windows too. Yeah. All of our windows block all the UV and infrared light.
Yeah, so I know. So you think like I'm driving in my car and I think the light's coming in. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm rolling down my window in like 40-degree weather just to get a little bit of sunlight on me because all of it's all blocking it. You're sitting in your home, you think you're getting light, and it's not.
It's not the same light.
No.
Like I tried opening that little window over there, and I put my head in the real sunlight, and then in the sunlight from the window, and there was a heat difference.
Right.
And that's why they say it's energy inefficient because the sun produces heat.
Right.
And when the real sunlight that's actually good for our bodies shines into our house, sure, it heats up our house a tiny bit.
Right.
But like, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think that what we've done to block all the UV light just because it's energy inefficient is so much more damaging to us than just letting our house be a little bit hotter. Like, sorry you can't have 71 degrees in your house all the time. Like, deal with 76 and put a fan next to you. Yeah. You know, it's so detrimental that we're blocking it all. And so, to your point, like, you can tell a difference. If you guys want to actually test this out, when you try feeling the sunlight through a regular window or your car window, it's a totally different feeling than when you're actually just regularly in the sun. Which sounds so basic, but I had no idea that all the implications of all these things we've been doing. So anyway.
So I guess we can back up too. So like summer and spring, super easy to get sunlight. Totally. No problem. Everyone gets sunlight but a lot of people worry about putting on the sunscreen. But we can build a sun callus on ourselves. This like if we have a slower absorption of the UV lights and don't, see no sun all winter and then go out for hours on end with no sunscreen, you're going to burn yourself, and that's what's going to be very damaging.
Yeah. That's more so what would lead to cancer
like a slow
in the skin.
Right. And so it's like a slower progression, going out for maybe 20 minutes and then the next time going out for 30 and maybe next time an hour, you'll start building up protection, sun callus to it and not have to worry about burning. And another thing too is about the sunglasses is that when you're wearing sunglasses in the sun, your body thinks it's nighttime and it's not, or darker out and it doesn't have to protect itself from the sun. But if you're exposed to the actual natural light of the sun, your eyes can pick that up and tell your melanin how to absorb the sun. I don't know if that's actually accurate or not, but it has a way of interpreting the light around you and understanding that your skin's going to be absorbing the sun and prepare your body for it, so that you won't burn. So I do think there's some good uses of probably using sunscreen if you know you're going to be out on the 4th of July and you haven't been outside and you know you're going to be on a boat for hours on end and there's no way to protect yourself from all that sun. I could see why maybe someone would use some sort of
right, or like an example they gave in the podcast was like if you're going on a boat and you're getting double the sunlight.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Right. Yeah, you're going to get the water reflecting off of it too, which is super fascinating too. Even water doesn't like blue light.
I know, that's why water is blue. I was like, I feel like I knew that, but I didn't fully comprehend it. That water doesn't like blue light, so that's why it reflects it.
Yes,
because like water in our glass is just clear,
right?
But that's not because ocean water is any different,
right?
Because all water reflects the blue light,
right? But so in the summertime, it's also, I think, important for people, which they explain too, people with coupled and uncoupled mitochondria. So you're talking about lighter and darker skin. So more uncoupled mitochondria, they're going to actually waste the UV light and it's going to turn into heat versus actually using the UV light to proliferate a detox system pretty much in your body to help create water in your body and all sorts of stuff. All sorts of really great things for you.
Which I don't think that people get that either, that your energy is actually coming from water.
Right.
It's not coming from what we used to think of as ATP. That blew my mind when I saw that too.
Right.
That's what I was always taught.
Yeah, so that I think that was part of it is that uncoupled mitochondria people are going to be people with lighter skin, so like people up north who like Scandinavian kind of background,
even us here in the northern US and Canada,
that are going to have more issues with it because it's going to go down the electron transport chain, right? That's going to inefficiently produce heat instead of ATP or whatever it may be. And so that's why in the summertime we have to be super cognizant of like being aggressive in our sun exposure, because we're going to store that for in the wintertime. So when we come up on the wintertime, we already have a lot of the exposure and the detoxing and that we needed. And our body knows that in the wintertime we aren't going to get that sun exposure, because that's how your skin, I guess, regulates it too, is kind of my guess. So then in the wintertime, we don't get the sun exposure. We can try to as much as we can, you know, getting outside and stuff like that. And they've always promoted that, you know, going outside, getting exercise. And why is it super beneficial? Probably because you're getting some of that sunlight exposure. Yeah. And then, I mean, it's also a big trend right now is the cold exposure.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And so in the wintertime, when we aren't getting the UV light to help energize our mitochondria, that's where the cold is going to help energize our mitochondria, because when we get cold, our mitochondria need to warm up, and then that's when they warm up, and that's when they create infrared light from within ourselves, right?
Yeah. Our mitochondria can actually create their own infrared, or is it infrared or UV light?
It's or both. Yeah.
Okay.
So
because that's how our bodies heat themselves. Which is fascinating. Yeah. Which makes sense, because I don't know if you've ever had like night vision goggles on.
I use those at work. Yeah.
You do? Okay, yeah. Totally. That's amazing. Yeah. Jordan he has those. So like, you know, you can see people and they have a heat.
Oh, and that's a totally different. Oh, I'm talking about the night vision goggles are what uses the moonlight to get light, and then the infrared light is what uses the heat. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
No, you're good. But the goggles that like can show you heats.
Right.
And you see people and animals. Yeah. Because you're actually giving off.
That's our mitochondria.
The mitochondria energy, which is heat that can be shown or seen through goggles, which is insane.
Yeah. So as much as people like fear, I think, the cold in the wintertime, it's actually good for us. That's what's going to give us our energy, and that's what's going to make us feel better. And so as much as you can try to get a little bit of the UV light, even though it's like a lower UV index, it's still good for you. It's still good to go out in the cold. You don't need to go like 30 degrees or do a cold plunge immersion.
Yeah. I mean, loves the cold
even recommending even just 50 to 55 degrees, a cold shower for a few minutes, I guess, is supposed to be just as beneficial as doing a cold immersion for like 10 minutes. So
it's true.
I might just be like speaking hyperbolic, but I think it's very, very simple stuff that we can do, that you don't need to go out and waste a bunch of money on a bunch of products that we've already wasted a bunch of money on.
Yeah, right.
But it's more just, we want to try it out. We want to see what works, what doesn't. And I think the cold exposure was very interesting learning for me, and doesn't have me as fearful as, we need to bundle up. I don't want to get sick. And it's like, no, it's actually just the opposite. It's going to actually like enhance your immune system. It's going to enhance your mitochondria. It's going to, enhance your mood and stuff too. Yeah. So whether it's going out for a short walk in the cold, but not all bundled up, maybe just jeans and a t-shirt.
She talked about how thyroid plays a role in all of these different things. And like, I have hypothyroid, so I have to take a very small amount of thyroid every morning. And I am so determined to heal my thyroid and my adrenals that I want so badly to like do all of these things that she's recommended, right? Where, she's not a doctor, so like this is for educational purposes only, but walk out in the morning right when the sun comes up and get that UVA light exposure, some of the
you're killing like 3 birds with one stone.
Seriously. And then putting my feet in the ground,
you're getting your feet on the ground.
Electrons.
Or maybe let's see how many
the
birds
cold, because it's wintertime here. Feet on the ground.
The feet on the ground, the UV
light from the sun.
Exercise.
The exercise.
Even just exercise in general isn't bad either.
There.
But yeah.
And all of those things combined, like, she broke down all the science. Again, that's not what we're doing here. That's not our purpose. But it was really helpful for me, because I am a science-minded person. I like being being proven the point that they're trying to make. Understanding it from like a logical perspective. But she was explaining how that can ultimately heal your thyroid, because if you're cold sensitive, which I am, like my hands are just freezing cold, and I'm always wrapped up and bundled up, and like I can't be in the cold very easily, because I don't know if I have Raynaud's or whatever it is, but I am just so cold all the time. But I think that's because I'm not like training my body to be like, you can heat yourself up. But it's like, I also have a very high pain tolerance, so I can cold plunge and then heat myself up, but I don't even like feel cold. It's a very weird situation that happens.
I kind of have a different theory, I think, on cold plunge and why it works. I'm not a scientist myself, but I think it has kind of along the lines of like suffering and like, you know, dealing with the cold for a bunch. I do think it helps stimulate and release a bunch of other really good stuff in your body, but I do also think kind of like the suffering aspect of it, which is kind of why Wim Hof does it.
Oh, interesting. So you mean like from a psychological mental standpoint that like the suffering makes you stronger? Yeah. Or the pain of it?
Yeah, like the suffering and then I think that's some of it too. That's like some of their theory behind it, and that's why they're saying what actually is the most beneficial temperature is going to be 50 to 55 degrees.
Okay, gotcha.
For getting your mitochondria worked up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So you don't have to go out.
Yeah. Well, and they were also talking about how like the clouds don't necessarily matter. Right. You're still getting the light through the clouds, which made me think of it because I can see clouds outside. Because some people might be like, well, can I still do this when it's cloudy? Yeah. Technically, you can, but it's going to be very reduced.
Right.
So, and again, like we're not doctors or scientists, so we're just doing this for educational purposes only. But even if you go outside and it's still daytime, there's still light that's coming through. The clouds are just a very thin layer. So don't let that deter you if you live in like Seattle or a cloudy place that is cloudy a lot. Yeah. But back to what we were talking about with sunglasses. I remember, so you sent me this podcast that we keep talking about because I'm just like talking about it to everybody. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I watched it before going to Hawaii, and you had told me when you were in Hawaii that you didn't wear sunglasses and you didn't get burned at all. No. And that she had a theory that she talked about, if you don't wear sunglasses, you won't get burned. Yeah. I didn't wear sunglasses. Jordan didn't wear sunglasses. And
I was also very conscious of going out in the sun too. I was like the first day I was like, I brought the umbrella. I was like, we'll just go out and like I'll hang out under the umbrella and then I'll go out a little bit more. Totally. But I wasn't like, let's go out there for 3 hours and see if it works. Yeah. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, no, of course, because like your body's gonna burn. Yeah. You know, because you haven't built up that sun callus that you were talking about earlier. Yeah. But I was the same way. I was like, okay, I'm not wearing any sunglasses because I used to like be obsessed with wearing sunglasses everywhere I went. My eyes were like so sensitive. But now I'm like starting to train my eyes to just deal with the sun, and it actually feels so much better. And I find now that, well, let me talk about Hawaii first. So I didn't wear sunglasses, and similar to you, I was in the sun a decent amount, but I would take breaks in the shade under a tree or wherever we found shade.
Does this count as a peer-reviewed study?
Yes. 2 out of 2. Perfect. Perfect results. But yeah, I didn't get burned. Not a single fraction of my body got burned. Yeah. I was stunned because I am so white. And I usually burn, I mean, I lived in Hawaii for 4 years, so my skin did develop a callus, and I don't burn as much as I used to. Yeah. But still, in the wintertime, I am white as a white feather, like these pants, and I didn't burn. Yeah. And Jordan is so white, like so white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and he didn't burn either. That's good. And he was amazed. Yeah. It was crazy. And we didn't wear sunscreen. Usually I use like a zinc oxide type of like non-toxic sunscreen because that's, if you're going to do it, you got to not use toxic sunscreen. Yeah. But I did that and it was so crazy that actually worked. I was like, oh. And it kind of validated that everything she said was true. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just had to put that in there. I was going to say something else about it, but I've lost it. It'll come back.
Yeah. No, it's fine. There's so many other things that we were talking about also.
There really is. So many rabbit holes.
Yeah. As far as like to eating wise, I think I've always been a big health advocate, being a nurse, being like an aggressive working out kind of person. Yes. An addicted active personality, maybe you might say. Is I've always been always have smoothies almost every day, you know, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. And one thing she really pointed out too is that your body that fruits and vegetables are very high in deuterium, and how your body is going to best process deuterium is going to be when in more exposure in UV light. So that's why our body.
Let's define deuterium.
Okay.
So people know what we're talking about.
Okay. So
I didn't know what that was either.
I didn't know. So deuterium is pretty much, I think it was like a heavy hydrogen molecule.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just has an extra neutron in it. I think it's an extra neutron, so it makes it heavier.
Or is it a proton? I don't know. It was
Do
one
we
of
have
the
to look
two.
it up?
I need to. Again, not
This
scientists.
is why we're not scientists.
Yeah. I think that a proton has a positive charge, a neutron has a neutral charge, but I don't remember which one weighs more. Because electrons are a negative charge, if I remember right.
Wait, what? Now this does not make sense. Now it's saying it just has one proton and one neutron.
Is that different than the other hydrogen? It's got to be, because she was talking about how it's a heavier hydrogen molecule.
I know.
I don't remember what she said it was from, though.
Yeah, it's a heavier hydrogen. It has an extra electron in the neutron. Sorry, it has an extra neutron
so
in the
you were
nucleus.
right. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
to make it twice as heavy as hydrogen is.
Got it.
So, and there's deuterium in all of our water, apparently.
Yes.
And how the levels of deuterium is going to be based on your latitude. So, people that are closer to the equator are also who are going to be the more coupled mitochondria people too are going to have higher levels of deuterium, but they can also handle the high levels of deuterium too because they're getting a lot more UV light exposure.
And the deuterium like breaks down the mitochondria essentially, right? I think I remember her explaining it like there's a rotor type of like that was the analogy she made, that the mitochondria have a rotor, and the deuterium molecule like breaks that rotor, so it kind of damages the mitochondria, which is the energy source of all of our cells in our whole body.
Right.
So when we have higher deuterium, we have less energy. And we're more fatigued. Like there's all of these downstream effects that happen when we have an overload of deuterium.
Right.
Okay.
And so things that are lower in deuterium are going to be like animal fats. And so that's where it's like, oh, okay, so that's why in the wintertime, like we don't need to eat fruits and vegetables all the time. Like I still think there might be some benefit to it. They're going to have nutrients in it for you that are good. But, you know, if you're worried about fatigue and stuff, it's like, okay, well then in the wintertime you can be focused more on animal fats and eating protein and stuff that's not high in deuterium either, because I was like always making smoothies with all my coconut water, and that's like super high in deuterium apparently. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe not.
That's so interesting, because I don't know if this is why. It might be a blood sugar thing too, which she did talk about as well. I'm like, all these issues that I have in my body, like my insulin, I'm not diabetic, but I have like insulin regulation issues where like my blood sugar crashes, and then I can't eat too much sugar, so I have to really be careful about making sure all my macros are balanced with my protein, my carbs, my fats, and whatever else. So she was talking about, now I've lost my train of thought again.
I think I know where you're going with that
too.
too.
That like I'm not like called to smoothies. Like I don't feel good when I drink them very much. So that might be a blood sugar thing. Maybe it's just a me thing, but maybe it's a deuterium thing. I never thought about that before.
She did talk about, they did go into that too about like the UV light exposure and when you are best like least insulin resistant, I guess, and you can best, you know, take in sugars and stuff. And I think it was like, you know, eat a smaller meal before you go to bed, no high carbs, so that you kind of put your body into like a ketosis.
Yeah.
Excuse me. A keto state, and then you are supposed to eat like right after you have the first sunlight too.
Yeah, I think it was either the UVA or the UVB. Like once that rises, then eat within 30 minutes of that. Yeah. If I remember that right. I might not remember that right. Yeah. But yeah, there's something about how your body should be going into ketosis overnight. Yeah. And that then prepares your body to function much better the next day. I feel like we should categorize kind of what we're talking about. Yeah. And give people like the pointers and the tips.
Okay, so Alexis actually has a post that's really good on that too.
We're just like Alexis fangirls over here.
I know. So feast on summer sun, prioritize sunlight year round, embracing the cold.
Hang on. Okay, so these are some of the tips from everything that we've been talking about. These are some of the tips to do to actually follow what we're talking about. Right. Okay, so these are from Dr. Alexis. Right. She's a PhD researcher.
Okay. Feasting on the summer sun, like what we talked about.
Wait, feasting on the summer sun?
Yeah, so like getting in as much sun. This is what it says.
Okay. I'm like, does that mean something different than what we've been talking about?
So taking in the sun as much as you can, like in the summertime.
Okay.
Yeah, bank that vitamin D is what it says.
Nice.
Prioritizing sunlight year round. So, you know, like trying to get it even in the wintertime.
Which on that point, there was another podcast, I've been really into podcasts lately, from The Diary of CEO, and he had a toxicologist on there. And there's so many things we could talk about with like mold and whatever, but some of their things was to ventilate your house in the winter. Because that's...
Oh, I heard about that on another podcast too.
Yeah, like we need to open up our windows even when it's cold outside.
Yes.
Like, okay, it's going to use a little bit more energy.
Ventilate the house and whatever.
You need to ventilate your house.
Yeah.
Like, I come from a really, really tragic, horrible, scary mold story where it almost killed me. And it's not that hard to just open up your windows and vent out your house every once in a while.
Yeah.
So, and that will let in the light too, which is great. For your animals, your pets... like, you know, our dogs that need to go outside and our bodies too. So
yeah, embracing the cold, which we talked about too, and how to be comfortable with that. 50 to 55 degrees for 2 to 5 minutes is all it says. Or air exposure, going on a walk.
Yeah.
For about 45 minutes, which I can't handle a walk for 45 minutes.
That's
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Being more cognizant of your lights. So what is your light exposure at night, especially too?
We need to talk about screens and stuff. That's like the whole point.
yeah, exactly. There's a feature you can also put on your phone so you can make it, you know.
Is that the night shift thing?
No, it's not. No, that changes it from like a black to a white background pretty much, or a white to black. And then, but no, you can change it and it gives it like an orange hue and stuff like that too. And then just being mindful of the lights that you have in your house. If they are blue light, trying to like lessen them. Well, I did get a table lamp, night light that's like red, so that I use that at night.
I use a lava lamp.
Oh, interesting.
I'm sorry. Oh my god, it's not a lava lamp. It's a Himalayan salt lamp. Those are very different. But
I thought you were hippy dippy, but that's like really hippy dippy.
I had one when I was little. They're so cool. Have you ever had one? The like lava just like comes up and it blobs.
Very
that's
relaxing.
not what I was talking about. But all the power to you if you still want those. I meant a Himalayan salt lamp. That's the only thing that I'll have on at nighttime.
Yeah.
Unless I have to have a big bright light on. But those help get rid of the positive ions too.
Well, yeah. Well, they also do say that any light is actually bad for you. Like we're supposed to be in complete darkness. It can wake you. It could it can have subtle differences in your sleep that you don't even recognize or notice.
Okay, that makes sense. Just like getting more in tune with nature.
Yeah.
And how it works. Like when I...
Not even just nature, but I think more of our biology. I think once we get back to understanding more of our biology and how our body is supposed to be and how it's supposed to work, like, are we like, if we can sleep more in the wintertime during the cold, well, you know, our regular 9-to-5 jobs just don't allow us to do that. So that's not always possible, but like, yes, if you need to sleep 9 hours instead of your regular 7-8 hours in the wintertime,
like
that's supposed to be good for you.
I'm like, I'm a bear in hibernation over here every night.
That's supposed to be good for you, but that's also something else I listened to too about actually sleep is supposed to be more on a schedule, like, or a regular schedule. So going to bed at 9 o'clock every night. No, going to bed at 8 o'clock, then going to bed at 10 o'clock, then going to bed at 8 o'clock, going back to midnight. Like having a routine every night, the time you go to bed, so your body knows when it's supposed to release melatonin and when it's supposed to wake up, and you're gonna actually overall have better sleep, and you are going to have less fatigue because of that too.
That makes sense. I'm really bad at that. I need to get better.
Yeah,
be more disciplined.
Yeah, I should actually show you that next, because there's a lady that went on and talking about that. She was talking about how she's working on, you know, helping women in their overall like menstrual health and hormonal balance and all sorts of stuff too, with regular sleep and stuff like that too. It's really fascinating. So many different rabbit holes. Next is supplementing the UV light, so getting like a red light panel and stuff like that. If you really aren't able to.
I use this. It doesn't have UV in it. It's just red light. But
actually, you know what they do say is the best absorbed is actually going to be on your abdomen.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you can get the light on your abdomen, that's like the best place to absorb it.
Yeah.
Which actually makes a lot of sense to me too, because when I was younger, I always noticed like my stomach of all things would tan.
Really?
The most. I have no idea why.
That makes sense. I mean, my arms and my décolletage tan more or get burned, but
that
makes sense.
Burns, but my stomach always would be tan. I played tennis, and my arms were always so tan, and my stomach, even though it was covered, was always tanner than my arms. I was like, how? This is weird.
So cool, though.
Yeah, so there must be some science behind how it probably...
Yeah. Well, like when I'm on my period and I have like horrible period cramps, I use the red light, and my pain goes from like an 8.5 or 9 to a 4.
Oh, really?
It's insane.
Well, it's supposed to be really good for chronic pain, for inflammation, so many different things, because we need UV light
and red light and infrared light. It's like it's so annoying how simple it is. Like we'll keep going down that list if there's more, but
there's just one more, and that's prioritizing animal foods, like that, like that we were talking about too. So I think we hit most of the main things. I think that are super easy.
They're
changes.
So easy to change, implement.
Yeah, and
to be cognizant of, like, you're gonna go out in the sun, obviously. But being cognizant about it and why it's helping you. I'm a why person. I love knowing why.
Right.
And, some people are how people. Like, what do I do? Tell me how to do it. That's easy. Just go out in the sun more.
Yeah.
But, like, I always like to know why. Why is this helping me? What is it doing for me? Those types of things. But it's so interesting to me because I've always had an intuition about this kind of stuff.
Same.
I've always had an intuition about lights. I've always had an intuition about sun and about the earth and grounding. And we were talking earlier how Jack Kruse says you need 3 things. Remind me what those are because I can't remember.
Water, light, and magnetism.
Okay, yeah, right. So simple. Water, light, and magnetism. So when I go out into nature and I'm on a backpacking trip and I'm going 10 miles into the backcountry, there is no electricity, there is no cars, there are no lights anywhere for any soul to see. And I feel so much better.
Right.
On my last backpacking trip, I had this crazy, what I thought was a cool download about how I thought, and this was before I learned all this information, how I thought electricity, what was keeping us all sick. And I've since kind of reformulated that thought because I think that it's our artificial light system that is keeping us so sick, on top of the mold, which I was talking to one of my other friends because she just had a leak in her kitchen and she's like, what do I do? Like, what are your suggestions? Because a lot of people know me now as like knowing a lot of stuff about mold. And I'm like, honestly, get a UV light because the sun controls mold on the earth. That's why it's not prolific outside. And it's controlled, probably other factors as well, obviously, but UV light.
Well, you know what they use in the hospital to when we have phones and we clean the phones in between uses and stuff.
Okay.
And what they had right next to the phone things to clean it, to keep COVID away and stuff, a UV light.
No way.
Yeah.
OMG.
Yeah. And then that's what they were trying to use to clean out the COVID rooms and stuff, was just blasting it with UV light.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
So, I mean, it kind of makes sense why you go to the beach and you don't get sick, and think about how gross the sand probably is.
Totally.
And how many people's bare feet.
Yeah. If you go to a resort and there's people swimming in the little cesspool water, that's not the ocean that's out there. It's very dirty.
Yeah. But that's also back to grounding too, long walks on the beach, people's favorite pastime, because the feeling of the sand in between your toes, and it's no, it's the free electrons probably that you're getting from the
electrons
ground.
are actually what give you energy. I didn't understand the chemistry and the science behind our biology as well.
Yeah.
So when she explained, this Dr. Alexis, when she explained that the earth is literally giving you free energy.
Yeah.
They're giving you electrons. Your body runs off of electrons. That's how your mitochondria are powered.
Yeah.
And when you literally just put your feet in the sand, in the water, in the earth, you're getting free energy. And I've always felt that way when I was outside, because when I was walking around and in my boots or whatever, on my backpacking trips, the moment that I take my shoes off and I put my feet in the ground, I'm just instantaneously relaxed. And even though it's charging me with energy, there's also this it feels like a drop or a release of tension and stress and heaviness and tightness. And back to my point, what I was saying with the electricity being the thing that I think is a toxic thing in our world, or it's not necessarily killing us, but it's contributing to downstream effects that can be deadly.
Right. I think a lot of it too is the dysregulation and the dopamine.
Okay, we gotta talk about that because that's a huge thing.
Yeah, that's
the blue light is a dopamine hijacker.
Right.
It works through your dopamine pathways. So, and there's this theory about how before we had our artificial environments, we were hunters, blah, 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 whatever. We needed the blue light to be able to be awake and to go out and do things. And now we are creating this artificial environment of blue light getting way too much, and it's hijacking our dopamine, which is why we're so addicted to scrolling on our phones and to watching TV and to being on them 24/7.
And this is, again, I'm not a scientist. I have no evidence behind this, but this is my theory, is that I think that's what is contributing to seasonal affective disorder and depression. And that's you know, they think it's the low vitamin D, it's the low UV light. I think a lot of that is contributing. But then we're also blasting ourselves with a bunch of blue light, and what combats the blue light is the red light. And so when we're not getting that regular red light in the wintertime, it's messing it up so much more.
Right.
And, you know, and the blue light is only going to get worse because in the wintertime, it gets darker earlier. So all of our lights come on earlier. And when it's supposed to be darker and we're supposed to be getting ourselves ready for bed, we're blasting ourselves with more blue light. And
the TVs, the phones.
Yes.
For longer periods of time while it's dark.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, my husband thinks I'm crazy because now I'm like, okay, after 5 o'clock, like no screens, no TV, like let's see. Because I want to see if it works. I want to see if it helps. I mean, I'm sure in general it's going to help because we're not addicted to our screens or not on our phones and stuff as much. But at the same time, I want to see how it makes you feel and how energy wise, like, am I going to feel like I have more energy in the winter times too? And
no, that's so true.
So if anyone wants to join us in our own evidence studies or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, we invested. We got our blue light blocking glasses. We got our light water, which is deuterium depleted. Mine's 10 parts per million. It's literally just from light water, and I've been drinking it, and it's amazing. It like
you can mix it. It's very expensive.
It's very expensive. It's so expensive.
But you can mix it
with regular water.
I had like 4 I mixed it like 4 different times with my water, and it was probably about 110 parts per million.
Yeah, I'm just cutting mine like half and half with RO. So I do like 1 liter of the light water, deuterium depleted, and then with the regular RO.
So yours is probably like 80 parts or something.
Yeah, I'm like really going for it, and I'm just gonna try it for 12 days because it's like I have 12 bottles. It's so expensive, but
oh my gosh,
it's like a weird feeling. I'm very sensitive. I'm a very sensitive person, highly sensitive, whatever. Even when I had my kidney infection a couple years ago, like I could feel my kidneys were infected, and my doctor was like, "That's impossible. You can't feel your kidneys," and I'm like, "I can." Yeah. So anyway.
I can too. When I was pregnant, I was like, my ovaries are aching, and they're just like, oh, that's probably just the muscles stretching. I go, no, I can feel my ovaries aching. Like it's a weird feeling. I know what's happening.
I know. That's something that we should talk about another time. Is like how much they gaslight us in the medical, which it's so cool for you to be like a part of the system. I work in the hospitals, but it's also like really hard for you. We've talked about that before. That like you're in such a different world than them all. But back to the light water, I could feel like I was clean inside. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's like there was less gunk and less garbage inside of my body, and I just felt lighter and cleaner.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to help you, I think, detox too, heavy metals and stuff also.
Which that was fascinating too, because I am such a big proponent of detoxing. That's like how my life was saved from my huge mold problem. Yeah. And, you know, I had all of these crazy toxins and all these things wrong with me. And detoxing, hardcore, like harder than anyone could ever probably comprehend, because the type of detox I did is like not even technically like allowed in the United States. But
not even just focusing on detox, is that they were talking about too is redoxing, which is actually kind of more giving more making your mitochondria healthier so that it's able to actually
push
then
stuff out.
Yeah, to then actually detox too. Yes. So I don't know a whole lot into that either, but that was a really fascinating thing too, is promoting our redoxing.
Mitochondrial health. Yeah. Yes. I forget what she calls it, but she's like a huge proponent of just mitochondrial health. And
mitochondriac,
maybe something like that. But with clearing out a deuterium and getting our mitochondria working better, getting the right sunlight and getting the right type of light, it invigorates our mitochondria, which actually then helps us detox. If we don't have very good functioning mitochondria, which I don't because they've been so damaged, you can get damaged mitochondria from COVID, from the jab, from any of these things that are going to break down your mitochondria, which that actually happens over time too, which methylene blue is apparently supposed to very much help with, and also be a neuroprotectant, protect you against, you know, this is for educational purposes only, to protect you against like Alzheimer's and dementia, like all the things, Parkinson's, like the neurodegenerative stuff that we're finding. Sure, yes, genetics is a big part of it. But the toxins that are in our body and that are floating around all the time, which they're saying glutathione is also really good for that too. And what does glutathione do? It binds itself to free radicals and helps you get rid of it, which is also kind of the concept too, maybe behind grounding and stuff too, is trying to help get rid of free radicals. So anyways, it's all super fascinating. 100%. It's all interconnected. Well, and free radicals can lead to cancer too. That's why they say don't eat burnt toast. Like don't eat things that are charred on the grill, because that substance, the way that the heat mixes with the molecules and the chemistry inside of the substance of food creates more free radicals in your body, which can then lead to greater risk of cancer, which maybe that's been disproven by now. I don't know. That was like from years ago that I understood that. But my point in saying all of this is that, like, I'm such a big proponent of detoxing, and you can't detox effectively if your mitochondria are either broken or are sluggish and don't have enough energy or aren't moving very well. And so doing all the things that you possibly can to heal your mitochondria, fix your mitochondria, which are the energy powers of your cells in every part of your body, that is like the root. If we're talking about root medicine, which I do, my sister does, you're super into now, if like root medicine is fixing the mitochondria. Everything is built off of that building block. And if we're drinking a bunch of deuterium in our water and eating it in our food and we're not getting rid of it,
we're not getting the
sunlight, we're loading ourselves up with blue light that's hijacking our dopamine.
You're not going to get rid of your chronic issues, your inflammation, all
chronic fatigue, all of the toxins that are in your body. You won't be able to get rid of them as effectively. And like genetics definitely play a role in this, because like you and I have discovered, like, we don't really produce our own glutathione very well, and we need glutathione in order to detox as well. So people that are like us, that are not only genetically predisposed, thank you. I'm like, what is that word? Those of us that are predisposed to these types of things where, you know, we're not going to detox super well on our own, we're already sensitive to chemicals and fragrance and all the other toxins, then we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot if we're not doing these other very simple, basic things. So it's not hard to include it, and it's not hard to make these changes and implement them. Essentially.
But I think a lot of people, and I just think it's a very common symptom that people have, is the fatigue, the not feeling right, the feeling depressed, the feeling overwhelmed. And I think there's so much that goes into it, but I think, you know, these simple steps to exposing yourself to more UV light and trying to get rid of more of the blue light is going to be very beneficial in progressing anyone's journey into mental health, or getting their mind straight, or getting their body straight, or anything like that. Like that's the foundation, I think, into then going forward, 100%. Whatever your next steps may be, whether you feel like you need a diet or whether you need to exercise more. And it's like, how can you exercise more when you're too exhausted all the time? You know, so
100%.
I think it's a great starting point for any journey, any health journey that somebody is going on right now.
Yeah, and if you're even like 10 steps into your journey, if you aren't doing these things, it will just boost you that much further.
And it helps you think back too, to like, oh, why did that work? Oh, that worked probably because, like, why is running feeling so good? Because I've gotten really into running this past year, and it's like, well, why is running feeling so good? I'm like, I'm outside. I'm forcing myself to be outside. In the wintertime, if I'm running, I'm getting exposed to the cold. Like, granted, exercise is great for you too, but like there's so much more benefit than just the working out that is so good for you.
Yeah, I feel like these types of conversations are like adding to, like, not the food pyramid, but the concept of like what we need to be healthy.
Yeah.
We've kind of been in this process of like, need to eat healthy and drink good water that's clean and get exercise. And those are kind of like the foundations of what a more holistic, healthy lifestyle is like. Right. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not like crazy overwhelming to just be like, oh, in addition to like those very, very basic, simple things, what would actually help you do those things more, to your point earlier, was that let's fix the mitochondria. Let's decrease the blue light exposure if you can. Wear the glasses. I even have orange lens glasses, the ones that you sent me.
The darker ones.
Yeah, they're much darker.
Yeah, I think these are supposed to be a little bit more yellow too. They're not super yellow even for during the day, but I don't want to throw people off. I don't think I'm ready to throw people off completely and have to explain it.
The yellow ones make me look like I'm like shooting at a range or something. But I actually have found that my eyes, now that I've been doing this, not even for long, like a week and a half, my eyes are so sensitive to the blue light at night. I can't watch the TV with all the lights off without my orange glasses on anymore.
Same. And I also don't feel like I'm as addicted on my phone. I don't notice myself scrolling aimlessly as much anymore either. And I feel like I'm more looking on my phone, learning more things, and like using my brain more, whatever you want to say.
So the piggyback that this podcast episode that we keep talking about with Dr. Alexis was from original podcast of Jack Cruz. And something that blew my mind in that episode, which is tied to all the blue light stuff, is that the origination of using blue light to hijack our dopamine system intentionally was actually the Jewish mafia and how they made Las Vegas. And they discovered that if you blocked all the windows and you didn't have any light exposure to the outside and you put everybody inside under blue light, they would stay like 30% longer and they would spend more money.
Oh my
and
gosh.
that's how the Silicon Valley people, which this is like, you know, all conspiracy, whatever, but I think it's actually true. It's all been proven. That's how the Silicon Valley people understood or learned that the blue light is what addicts you and hijacks the dopamine system, and why that's a part of our electronics in the first place.
Yeah, I would love to go deeper in that with you, but I also don't want to get your podcast banned off YouTube.
I know. We can't.
We don't know how to filter ourselves yet.
I know, I don't have a filter at all. But if you guys are interested in any of that, listen to Jack Cruz because he's interesting. Who knows if he's right or not, but he's very interesting.
Yeah, he's a very interesting character. He's a very aggressive character too, so he might not always be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's very, very interesting though. But that's why, like, I always like knowing what's the origination of something. Like, let's go back. Yeah. Why is this happening? Again, I'm a why person. It's super annoying to some people. But like, why is this a thing? Why are the screens made with blue light? Why couldn't we make them with any other light? You know, why am I not as prone to using my computer or my phone when it's orange or when it's black and white? And why does my brain feel better when I'm seeing through an orange filter instead of just the straight blue filter? Like, why does all that happen? So for me personally, going back and like understanding that that's the origins of where it came from, it just all made sense. Like all the pieces got put together for me, and that's what's been so encouraging for me to make all these changes and to try all these different things, which we didn't even get into methylene blue, but that has been seeming to really help me too. That's very controversial. Using it is only my choice for me. It's for educational purposes only. Yeah. That it seems to like be boosting my mood, because she was talking about how it can be used as like an SSRI if you have neurotransmitter imbalances. An SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So essentially, it's helping your neurotransmitters balance out and helping you feel more of the feel-good feelings and chemicals in your brain. And methylene blue works like that, but it's not a actual drug. It's not a Prozac or a Zoloft or whatever it is. So that's been really fascinating and interesting. And the methylene blue is meant to help heal the mitochondria as well. So it's just like, hello, doing all the things to fix the mitochondria. That was one thing that when I had my illness in 2023, my doctor did say, like, you have damaged mitochondria. Like, we have to work on it. And so I was taking supplements and stuff, but I just don't think that that's as effective as these things we've talked about, like putting our feet in the ground, getting actual sunlight, getting exposed to the UVB, UVA, and the near infrared and red light and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so I do a lot of I do IV therapy too, which I didn't really explain either, and we do some supplements and injections and stuff. And this time of the year, everyone always wants the vitamin D shots. So all my clients have been getting my spiel when I tell them about the vitamin D. I'm like, you need to get outside and you need to get cold exposure. I was like, you need to get your blue light glasses. And so it's, that's been my spiel just with like everybody. And so I think all the key points that we were just talking about earlier too. But another probably big point too is mind your blue light too. I think or not mind your blue light, but mind what's hijacking your dopamine system. And trying to figure out what that is and how to mitigate that exposure.
That shows up for different people in different ways. Like some people it's Instagram, some people it's Twitter, some people it's the TV, some people it's the news. Like my mom and my dad, God bless their souls, they are like addicted to their screens and they read the news. And that's just their vice, you know? For me, it's random things like my text messages and my emails. Like I love clearing those out. I don't like when they get too piled up. But I'll get into text conversations and I'm like glued to my phone. And I actually finally noticed how much I was on my phone when I got my glasses. Because I would force myself to remember to put my glasses on before I used my phone. And I needed to use my phone all the freaking time and I didn't have my glasses. And I'm like, wow, I use my phone so much.
Yeah.
And like, especially if I'm alone.
Yeah. I wear them like all the time now because people are like, well, why are you wearing them? I was like, it's just habit now because I just never know when I'm going to pick up and grab my phone.
Yeah.
It just,
yeah. And honestly, I have that little filter that turns the light orange on all day now.
Yeah.
I have it from like 2:59 p.m. to 3 p.m. the next day. And so there's only 1 minute where it changes. And the rest of the time it's all orange. My computer is always orange. I'm like, I'm going to try to change all the light bulbs in the house eventually. It's very expensive, but I'm going to get there. And I honestly, I think that
I was actually just going to try a couple lights because I have different like pendants and stuff like that. I'm like,
nice.
Maybe I'll just do my pendants so that at night I just have those ones on.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to like feel like you have to do your whole house.
So even before we learned about all this stuff, me and Jordan were really into vibe lights. We call them vibe lights. And like they're on right now in the kitchen. And they're just different colors. Like they're sure they're still LEDs, but they turn red and green and orange. And you can change them. And we have them above the cabinets and under the cabinets, and then in my my lamps that I usually have on, they're like orange. Yeah. And so I prefer having vibe lights than just having the brightest LED lights on. Like that drives me insane. It gives me headaches. I can't think straight. I'm like, and I talk about this with highly sensitive people too. Like you're really sensitive to your light environment. And so it's not, I've begun to realize that it's not just highly sensitive people that these things are affecting, and that maybe the HSPs are more in tune with the fact that they're affecting them, but they are indeed affecting all people, regardless of if you're highly sensitive or not, which was so interesting to me. But if you want to try some different lighting situations in your environment, try out vibe lights. Like you can just get them at Costco, you can order them on Amazon. They're just little tacks of lights that have a little remote and you can change the color. And we have it like behind the TV, which doesn't really help, but yeah, it's a really cool way to change the light environment, which is fun for an idea for people. Yeah. But, woo, we've covered a lot of ground.
I know. I think that's enough. Enough of a big red pill for people to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, is it a red pill? Because we're literally just telling people to do what we've been doing as a species until... up until like the 1800s.
Yeah, getting back to biology, getting back to following your intuition, getting back to like
all
just
the things.
simple
So
things.
When I coach people, I always tell them like, you're gonna be really frustrated with me because I'm gonna tell you the most simple thing, and that's the answer. Because the answer is almost always so simple. It might not always be easy, but it is so simple in almost all cases. Not in every case, but like the truth will set you free. What you need to do is actually very simple. We don't need all these complex things. I mean, if you want to get exposed to UV light, if you want red light stuff, like we were doing that at Christmas. I had like a red light on my back. I got my methylene blue. I got my glasses. All of these different like health hacks. Had my pulse. What is that called? I don't remember the thing that stimulates my my vagus nerve. Pulsetto, something like that. Like all these health hacks happening on Christmas with my family gathering. So very simple. Just get back to basics, and that will honestly help you in so many different ways. Like we need as humans, in my opinion, and this is why I'm so passionate about this podcast and like even having these kinds of conversations, neither one of us are experts in this field at all, but the more people that start talking about this and that spark conversation and that actually just try it, get empirical data, like, oh yeah, it has helped me to not be on my screen so much at night, and
it's free and it's risk free.
There's no side effects. Like going out in the sun, you're not going to damage it. So many people are afraid of the sun because they think it's going to cause cancer. Yeah. And I mean, Jack Kruse talks about this like to the ground, but it's like that's not what's causing cancer. Yeah. It's not the sun. The sun is not your enemy. It is your very best friend. Yeah. And the earth is in general. Like connect back to the earth. All like the hippie people really had it.
I know, right?
Like, just be friends with the earth and hug the trees. Yeah. Anyway, so I hope that's been really helpful. Is there anything else that you want to recap?
And thank you for everything that you've been doing and trying to reach out to people too.
Oh,
I mean, such a great job. Sadie, you're so amazing.
Oh my God, thanks.
You're doing so much and it's so good for people. Oh. It's just, I think something that's really good for people too is learning how to use your tools and not just using it for themselves, but using them for other people. Yeah. I think there's so much that I've learned in just some psychology, in reading books and listening to podcasts, or even dealing with my own psych patients too, that I see a lot in the emergency department is I find so much value in it for anybody and everybody. And so even though you feel like, oh, it doesn't pertain to me, it probably pertains to someone you know. It's probably your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your aunts, your uncles, your grandma. It's going to pertain to somebody that you know, and you find some benefit in that, because I mean, it'll be best beneficial if we start, sharing more with people.
Yeah, I know. That's my biggest thing, is like, we just need to disseminate healing and information and get people on a train that they're not taking actions and making decisions that hurt themselves, or that they are unknowingly opting into, things that aren't going to help them, but that they have the awareness to at least make a decision. Informed consent. That's what we want to be about. It's like, if you don't want to listen to anything that we said today, that's totally your prerogative, but at least it's your choice. You're not doing it because it's just what everyone else is doing, or it's because it's what you've been told to do. You actually have data, and you have the choice to do it or not do it. And that is where power comes from. Even though I have a lot of my own fears around making the wrong decision, and we talked about that earlier and whatever, any choice that you make will lead you to where you're going to go. So if you are deciding that you want to do these things and you want to help your health and maintain at least a vibrancy to you, then do some of these things. But if you don't, at least you're making a conscious choice. That's power. Power is being able to choose. So I just like giving people data and information and then let them choose.
Well, and also thank you so much also too for your vulnerability. I think that's a really big thing that people are so fearful of, and being vulnerable. And I feel like whenever I've displayed most of my vulnerability, or even seeing you displaying a lot of your vulnerability, I find so much more connection with people, and I find so much more commonality with people. And it's super scary for people to be vulnerable, but I promise, I think the more vulnerable you are, the more you find healing.
That's so true. It's so beautiful. I love that. It is true. It's been a difficult journey, but I do love to encourage and support that. And as I've seen that in you, it makes it so much easier to connect and feel human. We listened to that one podcast, another one, oh my gosh, with Greg Braden, where it's it's your biology, your humanness, your empathy, your compassion, your creativity, your imagination. That's what is so beautiful about humanity and about being human. And when we start talking about all these technological things and advances, and having RFID chips and merging with AI and all that, the transhuman movement and all of that, I think that connecting to our vulnerability, connecting to our empathy, our compassion, caring about other people, extending a helping hand. I know the holidays are over, but so many people are obsessed around the holidays with helping other people and donating to charity, and it's that should not stop. It shouldn't just be a one-time thing. We are service animals. We are herd animals. We need to be of service to one another. In whatever way, shape, or form that means. Follow your excitement, follow your joy and your passion, and be of service. Become more of who you are. That's the formula for a great life.
I think I definitely believe that the more that we serve people, and the less selfish that we are, and the more selfless that we are, I think that's where we can find true happiness too.
It boosts the purpose of living to a whole new level, where it's oh, I'm not just living for me, I'm living for 5, 10, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of other people. It doesn't matter how many it is, but and this is just my opinion, but when you step forward into a life of service, not you're a nun and you have to give up everything that you love or that you do, it's when you blend the two together. I think that's the path and the journey that I've been on for so long, is how do I blend the two, where I love serving people and I also want my own life to do certain things.
That's kind of why I chose nursing, I think too, is I wanted to go into something that was felt fulfilling, that was serving, that was useful, not just doing meaningless desk jobs and stuff like that. It was
which are still good, those are still helpful.
I know, but I wanted something that felt like I was making an impact on a day-to-day basis. I think that's true. My husband has a desk job, and he works for a low-income housing mortgage company, and so he feels because his company does good, that he's doing good, and that's great. But for me, I need to have the the immediate impact, which might be a little selfish on my part too, because I need to feel good about myself.
Is that like an episode of Friends where Phoebe is like trying to prove to Joey that there's no selfless
yes,
act?
I let the bee sting me. Yeah, but you realize that bee died.
That episode is so funny.
I know, I think of that every time I think of selfishness. I think of that episode every time.
Well, honestly, I think that's why our biology is wired the way it is, because if we are extending a helping hand, it gives us either a dopamine, a serotonin, an oxytocin reward. It's like a kickback. Mm-hmm. Like when you're nice to somebody, when you help somebody, you get a kickback. So everyone wins.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we were made to be as humans, because like we can't survive and exist on our own. Yeah. Even if we're different and we have all sorts of opinions, that's all great. We need that. We need diversity. In that podcast with Greg Braden, he was talking about how it's not diversity that is like, we don't want everyone to be homogenous and all be the same. We need the diversity and to all love and accept that there's a diversity. Yeah. So we were talking about this earlier, when like people have different opinions or they live in different world views and different world perspectives. Like, let's just be open to a conversation. Let's just talk and not necessarily have to agree with each other, agree to disagree in a very calm, peaceful, loving way. And let's go on with our lives. You know, it's like, I've been doing a lot of, spiritual work on myself, which has been happening for the last 12 years. But right now I'm in a phase where it's like, the more that I do what excites me and what my passion is, and servicing people and just being of service to people, then the more that I feel like I'm actually living my true purpose. Right. And that is so fulfilling. And being kind and compassionate and empathetic and like using those skills that I have to actually be of service. I don't know. It just feels, it's not the answer to life, but it feels like a pretty good step for me personally. So
yeah, to get through the day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like when I'm working with somebody on a coaching call or a healing call, like I love doing healing work with people. I feel so aligned and I feel so passionate, and like time goes by like that. Yeah. Like it's not even real. And then when I'm just like by myself hanging out or whatever, I'm like, I'm bored. What do I do? I got to get on my dopamine, screen and get my hit or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like if we actually stepped more into our purpose and being of service, we wouldn't need the screens. We wouldn't need the dopamine. Like, obviously, I have to use it for my work.
I know. I actually noticed, too, I've been watching so much less TV. Oh, God. And I used to watch so much TV.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like I'm more, like, my mind more, like, wants to, like, learn and grow and, like, do things now. Like, I've always struggled with trying to find like hobbies. I couldn't really like, what's my hobbies, and now it's like I've kind of gotten more into like way more cooking and stuff like that, stuff that I can do at home. Nice. Dabbled into now the candle making thing, still trying to figure that out. But I have a bunch of supplies to do stuff, but so
well, I mean, this is just my theory, there's no scientific evidence behind this, but just energetically I feel like the dopamine slave that we become with the screens and all of that stuff, it prevents us from becoming more of who we are. And that's then is like the root cause of what makes us depressed, because when we're not following our passion, our excitement, we're
losing our identity. And that's the big crisis I think right now with high schoolers and stuff too, is that they don't know their identity besides being behind the screen,
right? And they only interact with people on social media, like from a subcategory of reality, which is, it's cool, but it's also very dangerous in a lot of ways, and can be very toxic because they don't have a connection to self. And when we don't have a connection to self, then we are super controllable, we are very malleable, and we will listen to anything and everyone that's just on our screen. Which I know that this is being disseminated through screens, but wear your blue light blockers if you're watching this, but better to probably listen to it. But anyway, so I hope that's been really helpful. Is there anything else that you want to recap?
No, I mean, we can go down so many other things and save it for another time, but
it's so exciting. I love it.
But it's fun. And we just kind of were just winging this.
I know, it was great.
This is our first time actually debriefing it after we both were learning about this. So thanks for tolerating all of our flight of ideas.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for being a lovely, lovely person on my podcast.
Thank you.
Co-host, if you will. And we'll be back on again sometime soon. If you love this episode and or maybe others that you've listened to, please leave a review wherever you're listening to this. Share it with somebody that you think it could help. That's the biggest way you can help me help even more people like us. And if you want one-on-one support, feel free to go to findinghomehealing.com and schedule an intro session with me there. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you in the next one.